Polyp works here. So the stronger members of the Straw Hat crew care a lot about their bounties. We see this with Luffy. We see it with Zoro. There's a lot of competition, a lot of funny gags that happen with Sanji. And Frankie is depressed when Usopp becomes higher than him, right? So far, there are 3 characters that don't really care either way, lower or higher. Those being Jinbei, Robin, and Brook. But that's beside the point. The point is Sanji. Sanji has always had the running gag of his bounty poster being messed with. When he first gets a bounty, as you know, it's a drawn picture of him. That drawn picture turns out to be a real person. Then later on, we find that his bounty is the first bounty in the series to be changed to only alive, which leads into another whole story plot, only for it to be changed back to dead or alive with the drawing restored. So I say all this to say that Sanji has had a very funny history with his bounty and his wanted poster. However, when you think about the other Yonko crews, namely Cross Guild, I think so far Cross Guild has the most parallels with the Straw Hat crew, especially when you consider the 3 most prominent members. Luffy and Buggy parallel a lot, Zoro and Mihawk parallel a lot, and honestly, Sanji and Crocodile have a ton of parallels. Here's a list of said parallels to better get the idea across. Both Sanji and Crocodile are always smoking. Sanji's always smoking cigarettes, Crocodile's always smoking cigars. Both of them seem to be involved in sort of James Bond type of theme, because Sanji has played the role of secret agent and even had a code name in Mr. Prince, much like how James Bond has the code name of 007. And Crocodile plays the role of James Bond villain, as he owned a large, intricate criminal network, and he most likely is based off the villain Goldfinger, which is very funny because this is played up for a gag when Crocodile is being mimicked by Usopp, who paints his finger gold to replicate Crocodile's hook. So I think that's a gag, which is very funny. But also, of the 3 respective members, both in Cross Guild and the Straw Hats, both Crocodile and Sanji are the best dressed and kind of stick with a theme in terms of dress. Most of Sanji's outfits are suits, whereas Crocodile mostly wears a vest, a shirt, and some sort of coat draped over his shoulders with an ascot. Following that, both of them have the power of regeneration. Thanks to Crocodile's Logia fruit, he can regenerate, as that's the main function of a Logia fruit. Whereas Sanji can regenerate thanks to his Germa genes activating during the events of Onigashima. Following that, both Sanji and Crocodile have the ability to fly. Thanks to Crocodile's Logia fruit, he can fly on the winds. I guess the Logia fruit generates. It's not really specified how he can fly. And Sanji, of course, uses a modified version of Moonwalk and Skywalk, and that's how he too can fly. Probably both of them have a relationship to restaurants, as Sanji worked at a restaurant in the Baratier, and Crocodile owns a restaurant and casino in Rain Dinners within Alabasta. So that's a very interesting concept. Another thing that's very odd between them is that both of them have had relationships with Okama. Sanji is terrified of Okama, but has respect for Ivankov. Crocodile seemingly has respect for Okama because he allows one to tie his shoes as the party in Impel Down gets ready to break out. But Crocodile has a very sticky relationship with Ivankov. It's not really clear if he respects Ivankov or he despises him. Most likely, he respects him enough to honor his wishes during the raid. So you could say in a roundabout way, there is a fear or respect from Sanji and Crocodile when it comes to Ivankov. But on the subject of Dough Fruits and Dough Fruit users, it's very interesting that both Sanji and Crocodile work as vehicles to introduce us to Dough Fruit lore that becomes a bigger and bigger deal as the series moves on. For example, in Impel Down, Crocodile actually explains what an awakened Zoan is when the jailer beasts attack the party. This is the first time awakening is attributed to any kind of fruit, which of course becomes a bigger and bigger deal moving forward in the story, especially when you consider Zoan fruit users as a whole. On top of that, it's so funny that his organization also introduces us to the idea that objects can eat Zoan fruits, because Lasso is the first character in the series who was originally an object who then ate a fruit. And what's even funnier about all of this is that Crocodile, even though he has the name of an animal, is a Logia fruit user. He has nothing to do with Zoan fruits or Zoan fruit powers, yet everything around him is Zoan fruit related. He's got this weird Zoan fruit user in his organization. He reveals to us the nature of the jailer beast, which then goes into awakening as a concept, and then he gets beat by a Zoan in Luffy. So all of that is extremely funny and very interesting. Now, when you get to Sanji, he has a relationship with the clear fruit, and we find this out in Thriller Bark. We also find out that the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia is a published book that you can just own. But then that leads into his backstory, of which we get the idea of lineage factors and raid suits and this and that. What's funny about that is he ironically gets the power that he wants because, of course, when he puts on the raid suit, he becomes Stealth Black. Stealth Black has the same powers roughly as those granted by the clear fruit. However, moving forward, the lineage factor bit is the important takeaway from his entire backstory, because that then translates into the subject of the Seraphim way later in Egghead, in which some Seraphim who are clones of warlords who don't have Devil Fruits get lineage factor extractions from prisoners held and impaled down who have Devil Fruits, so they can then use their powers thanks to the implementation of green blood that contains the lineage factor of those Devil Fruit users. So all of that was started by Sanji and his dysfunctional family. And I find that fascinating that both of these characters have contributed so much to Devil Fruit lore and how much that has blown up in the past few arcs. So moving on from that, Ali, both of them introduce us in a roundabout way to very popular pirate tropes in the series for the first time. With Sanji, of course, his adoptive father is Zeph. Zeph is the first character in the series to have a peg leg, and he was a pirate before he became the chef of the Baratier. So he is the first pirate in the series who has a peg leg. Following that, Crocodile is the first pirate in the series to have a hook. A hook for a hand is a very popular pirate trope, popularized by Captain Hook from Peter Pan, presumably. So in both of these situations, you have these two characters either being related to or having traits that are very popular pirate tropes. And they're the first ones in the series to introduce us to such tropes. And it's through these parallels in which I say Sanji is the key to Crocodile becoming a woman. What do I mean by this? Well, it's very funny that in Crocodile's story arc, right, Alabasta, he wants to stay incognito because he's using his warlord position to set up this huge company in Baroque Works and to operate this hostile takeover of the Alabasta Kingdom so he can have his hands on Pluton, right? We never really know why he knows the things he knows, because he's also the first guy to introduce us to the concept of awakened Zoans and Impel Down several arcs after. So Crocodile's a very interesting character because he knows a lot of information, but that's beside the point. The point is that when he sets up Cross Guild, he wants to use Buggy as a front man and act in a similar way in how he acted when he was running Baroque Works. A man behind the scenes. He wants a outward image, but then he wants to be able to operate without many people knowing. I think he's going to get what he wants, but not in the way that he wants, because the running gag with Sanji is that his bounty poster is a poorly drawn version of him. It doesn't look anything like him, which led to the whole Evolve shenanigans, right? With Crocodile, I think the opposite effect is going to happen. Somehow, some way in the future, he is going to be changed back into a woman. Now, if you're a little lost by that, let me catch you up to speed. During the Impel Down arc, when Ivankov, Luffy, and the gang break Crocodile out of level 6, Ivankov assures Luffy that Crocodile won't do anything drastic because he has some information on Crocodile to keep him in line. Based on the first showing of Ivankov's abilities using the hormone fruit, is that he changes Beltolt from a man into a woman. One can make the connections and figure out that Crocodile was most likely a woman at some point, made a deal with Ivankov, and got transformed into a man. Now, other people have variations on this theory. Some think that Ivankov made Crocodile more muscular or what have you, but Occam's razor would suggest the simplest solution is most likely the right one. And given that the first display of the hormone fruit's abilities is that it can gender swap people, that's most likely the case that occurred with Crocodile. He made a deal with Ivankov. Ivankov changed him from a woman into a man. So, moving on. When he is changed back into a woman, this would then make his bounty poster invalid because no one's going to believe this woman is actually Crocodile. People are going to think he's just dressing up as Crocodile, but no, that's actually Crocodile. This woman is actually the real Crocodile, but nobody will believe him or her in this situation. So he'll get what he wants because no longer will he even be the front man of Cross Guild. He'll be this weird woman that just hangs around Buggy, hiding in plain sight like he did when he was a warlord, a very popular and well-renowned figure with a hidden agenda. But now that reputation is completely gone, which makes things a bit more suitable for his movement in the world as a organization leader, making Buggy even more prominent. And then it would be like the world doesn't really know where Crocodile is, but Crocodile is standing right there in front of them, just not looking how he used to look. How does this relate back to Sanji? Well, Sanji actually has been a woman before. If you recall, during Punk Hazard, Law did some body switching shenanigans in which Sanji ended up in Nami's body and actually had to perform feats in Nami's body, which kind of lets you in on a very interesting plot about Nami, how she's actually deceptively superhuman. I have a whole video about that. Go check that out. But yes, Sanji has literally been a woman before due to devil fruit shenanigans. So we know that based on Crocodile's relationship with Ivankov, it's very likely that he has been changed into a man due to, again, devil fruit shenanigans. And seeing as how that's a bit of a Chekhov's gun that's going to go off at some point, it's very likely that in the future, Crocodile will be changed back into a woman. Now, how do I think this will happen? Well, I have an idea that I think I've brought up in past videos, but I'll bring it up again here just as refresher. As you know, all the Seraphim are clones of warlords, and we know that there is a clone of Crocodile. We don't know exactly what power this clone of Crocodile has, because so far, all the ones who have been Delphi users have had their Delphi fruits intact. But based on some statements made by Vegapunk, he has said that cloning or getting the lineage factors from Logia fruits is very tricky, which makes sense because when you consider the nature of a Logia, sand or fire or lightning or something as abstract as darkness doesn't really have DNA. So him not being able to extract the lineage factor or replicate how a being can shift from being a normal human or a flesh and blood being to being a element or some sort of gaseous substance of some sort is probably beyond him, because again, the substance they turn into doesn't have any traceable DNA. It's just literally the substance they become. This is so much unlike, say, any type of Zoan fruit, because Zoans, even when you consider some of them being mythical creatures that presumably don't exist, they still have a DNA because the devil fruits have made them real. But with the Logia situation, Crocodile's devil fruit most likely hasn't been copied because his devil fruit literally turns him into sand. And again, sand has no DNA. So what devil fruit would this supposed clone of Crocodile have? I think for a bit of irony, it would be funny if the clone of Crocodile has the hormone fruit, because based on S-Shark having the swim fruit, we know that devil fruit samples have come from Impel Down. The same can be said with S-Hawk and his dice fruit. So most likely, based on Ivankov being held in prison and Ivankov being a very high stakes inmate, because Ivankov has been the leader of the G unit of the Revolutionary Army, meaning the unit that operates on the Grand Line. He has been the leader of that for the longest time in the narrative. So, seeing as how he is very important, it would be very advantageous for Vegapunk to extract his lineage factor and get the essence of the hormone fruit to use at his leisure. So, I think that Crocodile probably does, well, I should say S-Croc probably does have the hormone fruit. Now, as an added insult to injury, and I don't know how far things will go, but it's very interesting that both Crocodile, meaning Crocodile, the actual character with the sand fruit, and Ivankov both have a strange relationship to injections, because Crocodile, of course, has his hook, but then he's had a dagger and a poison hook. Ivankov administers his hormones via syringes that pop out of his fingers, and then he stabs a target. So in both situations, both of these characters have a sharp implementation that's technically always on their person that they use for injections, you could say. So based on how far Vegapunk seems to go for perfection, it's very likely that he lobbed the child's hand off, lobbed it clean off, and put a hook in its place so that this S-Crocodile, this clone of Crocodile, can be more like the real Crocodile. And we know this is a possibility because S-Croc has a scar across their face. So that's troubling, to say the least. But with that being said, it's likely that if S-Croc has this devil fruit, this hormone fruit, that based on the idea that we have when these three are revealed, S-Flamingo, S-Crocodile, and S-Bat or S-Gecko, don't know what Gecko Moria's clone is, but whatever. Based on us seeing them and a Marine saying that Crocodile has been spotted on Empty Bluff Island, that most likely means that there's going to be a Marine presence there soon. And I think in the heat of combat in dealing with the Seraphim, there's going to be a bit of a oopsie daisy that occurs. And presumably Crocodile is going to be injected. Now, how that can happen is twofold. One, it's raining and Crocodile is forced to fight in the rain to bat back the Marines and the Seraphim. Or two, hormones technically are a liquid. So it wouldn't really matter in any case, because if Crocodile is injected with a liquid, it will go past his Logia regeneration, seeing as how liquid is of any type make him solid. And then bada bing, bada boom, he's injected with female hormones and he reverts back to his original state. With that being said, I think S-Crocodile, or whatever the code name of this character will be, will do this to Crocodile on purpose, because we know that the Seraphim share traits with some of the original characters, like how Boa is very shy around Luffy because Boa Hancock is shy around Luffy. So S-Crocodile could be very vindictive because We know Crocodile is very vindictive because as soon as he got Whitebeard in his sights, he was prepared to snuff him out. So in this turn of events, S-Croc probably knows or has some inklings of Crocodile's history. And due to Crocodile's current position, having a scar on his face and having a hook for a hand, it's likely that S-Croc has had those same things inflicted onto them to be more like Crocodile. Therefore, S-Croc blames Crocodile for their current state. Therefore, they deliver a pain worse than death, presumably, and set Crocodile back to where he was, turning him into a woman and, in a way, I guess, taking away whatever he aimed to achieve in the gender swap in the first place. Now, once this transformation happens, I think this will lead into a big flashback for Crocodile and his whole relationship with Whitebeard and why he went to Ivankov and why he went under the gender change that he did with Ivankov, and may go into how he got the idea of Baroque works and how he found out about Pluton and Nico Robin and all those things. And I think a very touching moment is going to come through with him, or her in this case, and Buggy, which then could open up Crocodile to more character development in the future, which I think will start to endear her to Buggy, because Buggy doesn't really see what changed and still regards Crocodile as strong and scary, which then endears Crocodile to Buggy, which makes the whole ruse of Buggy being the leader of Cross Guild more and more real by the day. So in a very touching and roundabout way, Crocodile for real accepts Buggy as the captain of Cross Guild, which I think will be a turning point for their character moving forward. And then the shenanigans begin, because then we have a crash of his reputation, as no one actually knows that this woman is him, except for those in Cross Guild, which I guess in a roundabout way will endear Crocodile to her subordinates in this case, because they know the truth even though the world does not, thus reflecting the various identity foibles that Sanji has had throughout the entirety of the story, making Crocodile's bounty poster one big joke, much like Sanji's. Lastly, extra little tidbit. Do you know that much like how Buggy and Luffy have met and how Zoro and Mihawk have met, Sanji has actually met Crocodile in the past, because he's spoken to him over Denden Mushi within Mr. Three's weird wax house during Little Garden. But the funny thing about this is that Crocodile has a vendetta against Sanji, but does not know who he looks like. He has never actually seen Sanji, and Mr. 2 has never copied Sanji, as far as we know. So he has never actually seen who this Mr. Prince is. So I wonder if that will become a bit later on. What will be even funnier is that not even Sanji perhaps would know that this woman in front of him is Crocodile, which would elevate Crocodile's frustration even more so, because we all know how Sanji acts towards women. With that being said, give me your thoughts.